Hello and welcome. My name is Akshay Nanavati. I am the founder of existingtoliving.com, where we help entrepreneurs and working professionals make more money while living a more fulfilled life filled with joy and passion. And today we're going to talk about an exclusive training video that I've prepared just for you called the Stress to Distress Cycle. As you may have just read, that there's a clear distinction between stress and distress. Most of us live in this world where we think of stress as distress, but stress is not bad for you. It's this fundamental flaw in our conception of stress that has us run from it or avoid it. And we read all these books and try to go through all these seminars or whatever it may be to find out how to avoid stress. But stress is good for you. We need stress to survive. We need stress to grow. We need stress to thrive. So we're going to talk about how to first distinguish between stress and distress, and then how to avoid distress. We're going to go into that specific stress to distress cycle. I'm going to teach you how to distinguish your cycle so you can prevent yourself from going into distress and keep yourself in this balance between stress and recovery. So starting off, I'm going to show you what the difference is between stress and distress. Let me grab my marker here. I'm going to draw a little graph for you to illustrate this concept. On the left here, on the vertical part of the graph, we have what we call the challenge. And on the bottom, we have our skill. And I learned this from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi in his book, Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience. It's really fantastic, and I've kind of created my own version of this, which I'll explain to you in a minute. Because along with skill, what I have kind of added to this is our belief about ourself. And you're going to have to excuse my handwriting. I get that my handwriting is terrible, but here we have challenge, skill, and belief. So when I say the belief we have about ourselves, because the strongest force in the human identity is the need to take action in line with our belief of who we are, our self-identity. So we do things that are in line with who we believe ourselves to be. That's why if you're trying to say quit smoking, what makes it really hard is if you continue to define yourself as a smoker. That's why you can't change those habits. So what we're going to talk about is how these things intersect. Now, I want you to think of these moving on a scale like this, right? So as the challenge goes up and our skill goes up, that's when we are in this state of stress, because now it's highly challenging, and our skill to match the challenge and our belief about ourselves and who we are to engage with challenge and our relationship to challenge is sufficient. So here, in this place right here, when these are all moving upwards, we are in a place of stress and optimal stress. What creates distress is when one of these are out of sync. Like let's say the challenge, we're moving up the challenge, but our skill level and our belief about ourselves is really low. That's when we are in distress. This is distress. Again, excuse my handwriting. And again here, when the challenge is really low and our skill and our belief about ourselves is high, that too is when we find ourselves in distress. Here we are in distress. And then this is obviously, you can see it kind of flows in between these states when sometimes the challenge is a little medium and our skill is maybe high. It flows in between the states. But we're going to talk about the optimal experiences because that's what our main focus is here. And this will give you an idea on how to distinguish the two. So let me give you an example. Now let's say we are playing a sport, right? Or let's say we're going swimming or we're running, whatever it may be. I'm going to focus on runner. I'm a runner. So we're going to focus on running. And now I've been told I got to go run a 20-mile or a marathon, and I haven't trained at all. That's going to be quite a challenge. And my skill and my belief about myself, even more often than not when it comes to running especially, it's not as much the skill, it's about our belief. Like if I don't believe I can do it, even if I run it in 10 hours, if I just don't believe that I can do it, now I'm going to be in a state of distress. This is going to put me way above stress, and I'm going to be distressed. I'm not going to believe that I can handle this. And let's put this in a work concept. Now, in our line of work, what happens? What happens when we go to work and our job is beyond, the responsibilities are beyond what we believe ourselves to do, are capable of doing, or our skill level? That's when we find ourselves in distress. And this is the kind of place where most people refer to as stress. And now we know this distinction. This is what we want to avoid. And let's look at it from this concept as well. This is also a big thing that puts people in this distress level when we're down here. Because the challenge is low. So many of us, 80% of Americans currently hate their jobs. They're unhappy. Employee engagement is miserably low in this country. Why is that? Potentially because people aren't challenged enough. In Daniel Pink's book, Drive, he talks about how people's need for autonomy kind of keeps people in this world lower here. because in many companies, the level of creativity required in work is not very high. It's a sort of menial labor, almost menial task that keeps the challenge low and our skill and our belief about ourselves higher. If we truly believed we were capable of, like, this was exactly where we're meant to be, and that's, whatever, pushing the papers, whatever it may be, and no judgment around it, whatever, there's no right or wrong, but whatever we may be, whatever our job is, if we believe that is who we are and that is who we're meant to be in life, then why would we be stressed about it? Why would we be overstressed? We wouldn't. But that's what keeps us there. It's because people come home from the evening. I know people in my life, friends, fathers of my friends who come home from the end of the day and they are stressed out. They open up a couple of beers because they're not happy with their job. They're not happy how much it's challenging them. We as human beings all have a need for growth. We strive for it. But what keeps us here is when we're not meeting that growth and we're just living in a low level of challenge, but our belief about ourselves is so much higher, and that's when we find ourselves in a state of distress. So, the optimal place where we want to be to keep ourselves in a state of stress is right here, where our challenge and our belief is both high. And obviously, we can't live in that place because let's look at the example of working out. If you're lifting weights and you're constantly lifting, you'll never grow stronger. So you need to recover. And recover is when you're relaxing. There's no challenge. And your skill can be here, but you're not doing anything. You're relaxing, you're recovering. And we also can't live in that mode because if we're too much there, we're in distress. So here's where we want to be, and recovery is on the lower level. When we're recovering, it kind of doesn't matter what our skill and belief is because we're not necessarily in activity. When you're not working out, you're not working out. You're just sitting on the couch, chilling out, and that's okay, obviously, as long as you're also putting yourself in stress mode. So stress and recovery on the lower end. So we want to create that cycle of stress and recovery and live in that cycle without going to this place or this place. We don't want to go there. That's when we're overstressed. That's when we get to all the health problems you've read about, and it's all around bad for human beings to be in this place. But this is good. And that's the fundamental misconception that I want to make sure to address here, is that this is actually a good place to be. Stress is fantastic. Now that we've kind of created the distinction between stress and distress, let's look at what it takes to change habits, because this is really fundamental. We're to create our cycle in order to shift our cycle of stress to distress and keep ourselves from going into distress. We need to understand what it takes to change our habits, because that's what we're going to have to do, is change some habits that may be ingrained in us for a very, very long time. So, to change our habits, all habits, MIT researchers have found that all habits consist of three things: a cue, a routine, and a reward. Now, let me explain this. Everything we do, first off, is we do for a reason. Even if it may seem bad for us, if we drink too much beer, if we smoke too much, if we're not exercising, all those things that may seem bad for us, we still do them for a reason. The part of us that makes us do those things, or that chooses to do those things, is still doing them for a reason. It has our best interests at heart. We're getting some need met by doing that. So that's why there's a reward to everything we do. And the cue may be, as I said in that earlier example, you come home from work and now you kick off your shoes and you open up a couple of beers. That's the cue, right? Like you come home from work. The routine is you kick off your shoes, you open up a couple of beers. The reward may be relaxation, and maybe a release, and maybe getting your mind off of a job you hate that's not challenging you enough. There's numerous different rewards. And in order to change habits, we're going to have to experiment with different rewards. So how do we do that? Whenever you're engaged in the habit pattern that you want to remove, you want to destroy this disempowering habit pattern, you want to write this stuff down. So let's notice when the cue is. I used to have a habit pattern of doing exactly what we said, of coming back and then relaxing by drinking a couple of beers in the end of the evening. And I would notice, so finally I would write down, I notice what is the cue that I'm in. Okay, at the end of the day, I feel like, okay, I want to relax, put on the TV, open and drink a couple of beers. That's my routine. The reward is relax and release. Now, to change that, the golden key, this is fundamental. The key to changing any habit is to keep the cue and the reward the same, but shift the routine. That's how you change a habit. Because whatever needs you're getting met by doing X behavior, you want to still meet that need. And you can, in the end, find out different ways to meet the need. That's what changing the routine is all about. And also shift those needs. But in order to kind of gradually move to that process, you want to keep the reward the same and get the need that's being met the same and just shift the routine. And all of these three things are driven, the MIT researchers found this, are driven by a craving. So often that craving for what's alcoholics or smoking, it becomes a craving, right? Like when you've seen smokers, When they want a cigarette, when they smell it in the air, they get a craving for it. It's the same thing with alcoholics or people who gamble. It's all a craving that you almost feel like you can't control anymore. So you got to meet that same need through creating a new craving. So that craving that I had for a high, for a release, I now got met by sitting down and talking to my wife instead and being vulnerable, expressing my emotions. Being vulnerable is one of the most courageous things you can do. Watch Brené Brown's TED Talk about being vulnerable. It's really, really powerful. I'll put a link for that right under this video so you can check it out. But that's what helped me meet that same reward, because vulnerability, especially as a Marine, was not something I was accustomed to, as you can imagine. So that allowed me to meet a certain need, and it got me a real craving for that emotional release that I got through alcohol, but I now got through just being vulnerable and being able to relax. And that's a beautiful thing. That really helped me shift my habit patterns. So take a look as you're moving through this. Take a look through any habits that you have. Find out what the cue is. Find out what the routine is. And find out what the reward is. Write this down while you're in the habit cycle. And look at the craving that's driving this reward. In order to do that, I'm going to talk about the 9 human needs. This will help you understand what needs you're being met. What are the rewards that are being met? So let's move over to the 9 human needs. I have created an acronym for you to make it a little easier for you to understand. So the acronym that I've created is A Success. Now forgive me, I understand the video, I'm still working on my video qualities and I'm improving the lighting, so the more and more you come here, you'll see better and better video quality, so you might not be able to see all of the writing here. So I'm going to read it out to you, and I'm going to read it slow, so you can take some time to write it down, because this is a really important part of this whole process. This is the basic human needs. All human beings have these 9 needs, and the things we do are to some capacity meeting these 9 needs. So the acronym again is A Success. So you can write that down vertically. The A stands for autonomy, S for service, U for uncertainty, C for comfort, C for connection, E for existence, S for spiritual, S for significance, and finally, success itself. And I'm going to explain each one of those real quick so you can get a greater understanding of what these different needs are. Autonomy. As I mentioned earlier in Daniel Pink's book Drive, they mention that all human he talks about how all human beings have a need for autonomy. This is a need to be self-governing, so we're not told what to do, driven by a carrot and stick. It's a need to control our destinies. We all have that, and I'm sure as you're watching here, you're probably thinking to yourself, I know I want to control my own destiny. I don't want to be left to the hand of somebody else. And often we do get to a place of victimhood, where we blame circumstances for things, but that's okay to be in that place as long as we notice it and go back to what I call the warrior. And I'm going to talk about that in a second as well. These are all kind of building the foundation for what we're going to finally get to in this training video called Stress to Distress Cycle. This stuff is really important in order to understand that, because this is the building blocks. So pay attention. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of value out of it. And we're going to then go right into the Stress to Distress Cycle and distinguish your cycle. So autonomy is one of the basic human needs. S is service. This is a desire to do something greater than ourselves. Most human beings have this need to some capacity, that to do something more than just about our own lives. For me, it was when I joined the Marines, that I wanted to serve a high cause and for myself. Today, it's still that service that drives me to make videos like this, to help you figure out how your stress to distress cycle and keep you away from distress. Things like that are now how I get to meet my need for service. Uncertainty. I'm going to address uncertainty and comfort together, because to some degree they kind of work together. We all have a need for comfort, to be safe, to be secure, but we also have a need for some variety, for the spice of life, right? That's why we travel. That's why we get out and do new things. If we lived our whole life in our comfort zone, we wouldn't grow much, would we? That's why we have a need for uncertainty. That's what puts us outside our comfort zone, in that unforgiving unknown, but where possibility lives. Possibility lives in this place, in uncertainty. It's a beautiful thing. That's why I do it all the time. That's why I travel, climb mountains, ski across ice caps, whatever it may be. That's how I get to meet my need for uncertainty. Next is connection. We all have a human need to connect with our fellow human beings. It's to love our fellow human beings and just to be with people. We all want that love, that feeling that somebody's there for us, that we can care for somebody else. That is a really, really strong human need, that need for connecting to something other than just ourselves. And also just to connect to ourselves, to connect to our spirit, to who we are. Because we're often so distracted by technology today, right? So this is that need for connection to ourselves and to others as well. Existence is that basic human need for food, for water, for survival. Most of us now, if you're watching this video, you're more than likely not having to experience this need. I've gone through moments in my life where I've experienced it, whether it be on an ice cap or sometimes in Iraq, where you kind of in that place where existence becomes a human need. But most of us today don't have to worry about this. We don't live in this need anymore. The next need is spiritual. This is the need for a higher purpose. That's why religion is so popular. Whether it's religion, spiritual, whatever it may be, it's a need for something greater than ourselves. It's not the service type need to do something greater, but just to find out a greater meaning to our purpose on this earth. We all generally, at some point in our lives, maybe ask ourselves that question. Why are we here? What are we doing here? What is the point of our existence? And although that may be a question we don't often find ourselves asking because, again, we're so involved in our daily life, it is a need that really drives us. In Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, he really addresses this need as he was in a concentration camp, and even in a place like that, he found meaning to his existence. So we all search for that meaning. What is our purpose on this life? And then finally, significance. This is that need to be felt wanted, to feel felt important. You know, we're often from a young age taught that this is like, it's almost like prideful to feel like we should have this need for significance, to be recognized, that we don't want to be bragging or prideful. But it's okay. It's really okay to feel that. I get a need from significance by sitting up here talking on a video or talking in a speech. I get a need for significance met when I'm out there standing in front of a giant audience, sharing my stories, helping people. That meets my need. That's a driving need that I have. So it's okay to have that need. Whenever you do something, reward yourself for it. Get acknowledged by the people around you. We don't ever do that. How often do you get acknowledged by the people you love for doing something worthy? That's what getting acknowledged meets that need for significance. It says you are important. That's why sometimes our inner dialogue is terrible. We don't talk to others the way we talk to ourselves. We are really mean to ourselves sometimes, just telling ourselves how bad we are, how no good we are. But if we get to start meeting our need for significance from others, from ourselves, it's, you know, have people, everybody you love, tell them to tell you every day how awesome you are, how great you are, how amazing the things you did today were. You know, that meets your need for significance, and it'll shift your inner dialogue. And finally, success itself. And this is not just success in the terms of like monetary success, of course. This is growth. Success is growing and achieving more and more and more in the realm of your mind, your body, your heart, your spirit, and your finances. So these are the 9 human needs. So when we talked about our habit cycle, moving back here, the reward we get usually meets one of those 9 needs. So once you find out what the 9 needs are, write down your top 3 needs and look at how you go about meeting that in your life. Do you go about it in an empowering way or a disempowering way? This will allow you to change habits, and this will also, bringing it back to the stress to distress cycle, this will also show you what you need to do to stay in this place of stress. Let's look at it going back to the example of working out. Maybe you have a need for significance, right? And I have a need for significance, so I want to work out to feel good about myself, to feel like if I'm walking down a beach, I look good, or whatever it may be, right? There's nothing vain about it. So what if I have that? I personally do not think there's anything wrong with somebody who wants that. I mean, if that's your whole purpose, just to look good, that might be an issue, because it's also about growing and serving a higher good, right? But I have a need for significance, so I can use working out to meet that need. Maybe you have a need for comfort. Maybe working out will get you to meet the need to be relaxed. Because after you work out, after a hard workout, I'm sure you know there's nothing like that need, right? So you can start associating actions and behaviors that you want to take to keep you in a place of stress as opposed to distress that meet your human needs. That's why the human needs is really the foundation, the building block. And moving from there, we can start addressing the rest of the stress to distress cycle and how to change habits. So the final point I want to address before going to the stress to distress, the actual cycle part of it, is the concept of being a warrior versus a victim. Because this is also kind of the basic. These are all, again, the foundations. I'm going to pull it up on, show you right here. So think if we're going to put it on a scale of warrior and victim. And this is a scale. What does this mean? This means it's coming from a place of 100% responsibility for your world. I'm not saying you can control all the events that happen to you, but you can control your response to it. Viktor Frankl, who I mentioned a few minutes ago from the book Man's Search for Meaning, once said that between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response, and in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So stimulus, bad economy, president getting reelected, whatever stimulus it may be that's upsetting you, and the response you choose to it saying, okay, I can't do anything in this economy, how am I going to find a job, and giving up, whatever, that's your response. But you can be a warrior about it and choose to respond with an empowered way, or you can be a victim blaming circumstances. And these are also shaped by the questions we ask ourselves, because all thought is a result of either a question or an answer to a question. Even right now, if you're disagreeing with me saying that's not true, it's because your mind is asking yourself, is that true or is it not true? So all thought is a question. And what the questions you ask yourself shape whether you're a warrior or a victim. It's questions like this, questions from a warrior place come like, okay, come from, questions from the warrior place are something along the lines of, okay, this happened. What can I do about it? How can I make the best of this? How can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? What's good about this? Questions from a victim place are like, oh, why did this happen to me? Why do bad things always happen to me? What can I possibly do about this now? There's no hope for anything. You hear the kind of distinction of the questions? It's saying that it's somebody else's fault. It's why did Obama have to get reelected, or why did it have to? And I have no political. Just to be clear, I have no political alliances to any of them. This is just I hear this around, so that's why I'm bringing this examples. But why did Obama get reelected? Why is the economy so bad? The questions like that are blaming circumstance, or questions that are coming from a place of being a warrior and being 100% empowered about your destiny. Now that we've established that, let's move on to the meat of this training video is the actual stress to distress cycle and how to find out your cycle. These have all been really important to cover because this is the foundation blocks, and we're going to kind of be coming back to this as I go through the cycle. That's why I wanted to address all of this stuff. And now we're going to move right on to the main part of the training. I hope you've really gotten a ton of value out of all of this stuff so far. I know I moved through it fast, but you have this video, access to this video now for life, so feel free to take your time with it, pause, play, but really take some time to focus on writing down your cues, writing down your routines, writing down your rewards. What are the cravings? Noticing that. Writing down your 9 needs. What are your top 3 needs? And start shifting the questions you ask yourselves. One of the bonuses you get as part of now being a part of this community, which again, thank you for it, I'm honored for you to be here, is a whole set of questions that'll actually help you empower this and see whether you're coming from this place of warrior or victim and how you associate pain and pleasure. Because all human behavior is driven by the need to avoid pain and the desire to gain pleasure. So the questions in this document you're going to get will help you figure out how to associate pleasure to activities, to habits you do want to empower, and pain to activities you want to get rid of, to bad habits. And they'll also help you start asking yourself questions that can come from this place of being a warrior as opposed to a victim. Great, so let's move right on to the stress to distress cycle and the meat of our training video. So the first part in distinguishing our stress to distress cycle is to draw top half of a circle on your paper. Sorry if I haven't said it yet. Get out a sheet of paper and a pen so you can kind of work along with this as we're going through it. And just hit pause right now, and then get your pen and paper and come right back to the video. I hope you're back with your pen and paper. Please do this while we're going through it. It's better if you're doing it you're doing it when we're working together on it, because then it's more powerful for you. You'll get the impact on it, so you're actually doing it, and we can work together while you're working through this process. So now the first step is on the top of the circle, draw an X. And what that X is, this is when you are in overwhelm, you are in distress, everything is, just overwhelming here. And whenever you find yourself, and I want you to think of experiences. Think of experiences that you had when you're in overwhelm, you're in distress. Whenever you find yourself there, label it. Give it a name, and you can even say, what do you say? Maybe you say things like, oh shit, oh damn, whatever, maybe, whatever word that you say when you're in this place. But give it a name, like I am so angry, I am so frustrated. The studies have found that giving your emotion a name lessens the impact of that emotion on your being. It's something as simple, but more often than not, we're not actually present to the emotions we're feeling because we're so distracted and running around. We don't know what emotions we go through on a regular day. We're completely unaware. Most people actually that I interact with in my work as a coach and helping people kind of take their life to live their greatness and achieve peak performance, they don't ever know what are their emotions that drive them through every day. Is it happiness? Is it joy? Is it distress? Is it frustration? So figure out and start noticing. This is something you can do even when you're not in distress. Is just notice the emotions you're feeling. Give it a name. And start understanding what are the states that drive you. Because the states that drive you control our experience of life. So coming back to this cycle. So give this a name. For right now, I'm going to say when I'm in distress, I say, you know what, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated. Let's say I'm frustrated. Because for me, this usually comes when I feel like I got too much to do and I just can't handle it. It's overwhelming. I can't handle all the work. I don't know how I can manage my time, so I get really frustrated. I feel like I should cut back on certain things that I'm doing. That's what happens to me. So give that a label for you. Then what I want you to do is throughout this training, we're going to ping pong back and forth between this place and start noticing where we are on this. So after I get frustrated, what happens for you? Notice yourself. What happens after you get frustrated? Because eventually you do move out of it, because you're not living in distress, right? You do go back to work the next day or whatever it may be. So after that happens to me, I take some time off. Maybe I sit down and actually watch a movie with my wife. When I finally start noticing that, I'll sit down and watch a movie with my wife, or relax with my wife, maybe go on a date, just take my mind off of work. And so maybe this will be movie or date for me, get my mind off of work for a little while. Then what do? Then I'll maybe, I'll have a relaxing evening with my wife over here, just a relaxing evening after that date, and really just try to keep my mind off of work. And that is tough for someone like me. Usually my mind's jutting back between all the things I got to do and how I want to take my business to the next level or whatever it may be. So look at this for you. Where are you on this? And before you get frustrated, now we're going to ping pong back to this side, is before you get frustrated, where are you? So before I get frustrated, I'm actually in a mode of real high. Like, I'm really enjoying all these things. I'm excited. I got 20 different projects working on. So this for me is like, I'm real excited before I start getting frustrated, I'll start kind of noticing that this is a place for me that I really enjoy being in. I like being. I'd rather be busy than not have anything to do. So that's what works for me. Where are you before you get to whatever word it is for you? And as we're ping pong back and forth between this, now what I want you to do is draw a full circle. The reason I don't start off with a full circle is just so you can kind of focus on the top part, that distress cycle. Because now we're moving through the full circle to see how this all works. Because before I get excited, then I'm just like, I'm in the kind of creation mode, right? I'm in creating mode. I'm creating all these projects, the things that I'm working on. Before that, I'm in dreaming mode. I'm just dreaming on all the projects. Then I start working on creating them, making them happen. Then I get really excited about them. Then I'm like, oh, too much. It just turns chaos over here. Then I get frustrated, right? So that's how it works for me. And how does this work after this? Kind of to tie in the circle on my circle is once I'm relaxing in that evening, next day maybe I wake up and, so I'll wake up in the morning. I'll maybe do a workout, because that workout usually gets me back in creation mode. Because the only thing that gets me frustrated often and distressed is when it comes to work, not necessarily physical, at least for me. That's how it works for me. It might be for you different. But I don't get distressed at physical activity. I actually really enjoy that, no matter how tough it is. To me, that's a good stress. So it's different for everybody. For you, you might not get distressed when it comes to work. That's how I get distressed. So I'll do a workout, and then I'm like, okay, now I got to get back to it. I've had a relaxing evening, so I'll start I'll start kind of then moving back to this dreaming phase, and I'll start creating. And again, you can see there's gaps just because I've been drawing this a rough sketch for you. But you can see how it moves in a cycle, right? So after I work out, then I'll sit down, eat some food, eat some breakfast, and then I'll start, okay, let's start dreaming again. What's my goal for the day? I'll start visualizing. And visualizing often comes before the dreaming. I'll just visualizing what I want my life to look like. Then I'll start dreaming on how I'm actually going to create that reality that I've visualized, how I'm going to create it, how am I going to make it happen. That's for me, dreaming. Then I'll start creating it. Then I get really excited. Then I'm like, oh, too much. And then I get frustrated. So you can see how you got to move through this cycle, right? So that whatever it is for you, that's how my cycle works. And now the point here to notice is, where can we stop the cycle? Where can we get out of this place? And it's not easy to do. I still go through moments of distress, right? Like, it's okay. There's no bad about that. It's nothing wrong. But ideally, we want to live in the stress and recovery, because it's okay to be in recovery. But we don't want to. This place is not good for us. It's not good for our well-being. It's not good for our family, the people we love, because they don't want to see us there. It affects my relationship when I'm here. It affects everything. So we want to try to avoid this place as much as possible. So how do we do that? We actually will start looking at this. Where can you intervene? So I can intervene here when I get really excited and start noticing that I'm taking too much on my plate. Before I get frustrated, I can say, take some time off. I can then move straight to here without getting there. Or I can even move to relaxing evening. I can move to working out. You can see how I can cut this section off the cycle here. I can notice it. The key thing is, again, to noticing where we are. And once I notice it, then I can say, okay, let me take on a little less, or let me see how I can manage all of it. I can put a new step on the cycle. Let me take some time off to relaxing even my wife, sit down with her, get her support, because we have a human need for connection, get her support, and then figure out how I can manage my time, create a schedule. Because for me, frustration is usually too much activity and not enough time to manage it. But you get now, going back to our the distinction between stress and distress on this chart that I drew here, that the whole distinction between too much to do and not enough time is really just a belief. I mean, we all have the same amount of time in the day. Like Richard Branson starts 400 companies. He's a multi-billionaire who runs an incredible amount of companies and does an incredible, does a lot with his time. He has an immense belief in his ability to do so. So whenever I get that, really what that is that maybe I'm in too much challenge and I don't believe that I can do it, so that's why it gets me in distress. So that's usually what gets me. I don't find myself in this place as much because at least with me, I keep challenging myself, and I work for myself now, so it's a little easier to do that. But I usually find distress when I get here, that my skill and my belief in myself is not able to match to the level of challenge that I'm inducing upon my own life and my projects and my business. So you can see how that's why this was so important, this foundation to set up, and you can see how this can probably apply in your life. Where are you when you get to the distress cycle? Are you in this place of too much challenge, not enough skill or self-belief, or is it not enough challenge and too much, and you have a high level of skill that you're not getting to meet, right? So put yourself in this place and figure out how you can do that, how you can stay in this stress and in this part where it's a good thing, right? So what do I do to keep myself over here? Going back to the cycle. What I do is I'll notice that. I'll just notice that, okay, either then I'll work on shifting my belief about how I manage my time or my skill. And what do I do by shifting my skill? I create a schedule. I actually logged out. There's 168 hours in the week. How many hours do I want to spend doing this? By breaking down that hours, all of a sudden my belief in myself has multiplied through a structure that has allowed me to create a new belief about myself, as well as create a structure that now can utilize my skill better. Instead of being in that overwhelmed or frustrated place where everything's crazy, I can now create a structure that allows me to stay in excited mode, because now if I'm not getting frustrated that there's too much to do and not enough time to do it in, that structure allows me to stay excited because I can see, okay, there's 168 hours in the week. I want 20 hours to my book, 10 hours to shooting video, 5 hours to blog, whatever it may be. And I can stay there. And then I can, when I'm doing too much work, I can notice it, say, okay, time to take a time off, go out for a movie, go out for a date, go out for dinner with my wife, relax, spend some time just chilling out. So take a look at your cycle and start noticing what is your level of challenge versus skill and belief. And the bonus tools you're getting as a part of this, as well as a part of becoming the community, is a document that'll help you shatter limiting beliefs about yourself. That one is incredibly powerful because everything we do is dictated by our beliefs. If we believe we're not good enough, we're going to bring that everywhere in our lives, everywhere. So that's kind of like a filter through which you view the world. If you see the world with green glasses, everything looks green. If you see the world with not good enough, everything's not going to be good enough. So the document that you have coming along with this whole training and the life mastery blueprint will help you shatter your limiting beliefs, and they'll also help you start asking the right questions and create those positive associations. This training video was exclusively for you, and I hope you got a ton of value out of it. I know I moved through it fast. I'm a fast talker because I wanted to make sure to value your time. I know we are all busy. We got a lot to do with our time, but I want you to at least still stop for a minute, enjoy this. You now have access to it for life. Take your time to move through the video. You can hit pause whenever you want. You don't have to rush through it as quickly as I go if you don't want to. That's okay. So again, this is the stress to distress training cycle. Look at ways to interrupt the cycle if you need to. Maybe sometimes we're spending too much time in recovery. How can you interrupt that? Go for a workout. That might be a good way to stress yourself out if you need to. For me, sometimes that's often considered in recovery. And obviously, you can apply this to different arenas, right? Like you can apply it to emotionally, to physically, to spiritually, to mentally, to financially, to your career. This cycle you can use in all different areas. You can even do this whole cycle for a physical well-being. You can do it, maybe you spend too much time not working out. So you can look at where can you interrupt that? Where can you create a new habit that interrupts if you're in too much recovery, and go to stress without going to distress. I really hope you got a ton of value out of this. If you have any questions, please comment in the space below, and also feel free to contact me. You have my word that I will get back to you, and I will respond to every single email that comes my way. You have my word on that. So go through this training. Start looking at, what are your... I'm going to go back and show you what are your 9 human needs, the ASUCCESS acronym there. What are your 9 human needs? What is what is your habit cycle? And look at what is the level of challenge you need, and the skill and belief you have about yourself to stay in stress versus distress, and then figure out your cycle. And keep moving forward, empowered in your life, so you can stay in stress and recovery and live through that balance, because that's what life is moving through that ups and downs of stress and recovery. Excuse me, not distress, right? We want to try to avoid that. And again, it is okay if we get there. It's part of life. But to stay in the stress and recovery as much as possible and move through it empowered and enjoy it. Enjoy this whole process, because that's what it's all about. If If you're not having fun doing it, there's no point in doing it. Everything we want to do in life, we want to do it to be happy. That's really what we seek, is that fulfillment, right? So enjoy this process, have fun with it, and thank you again so much for being a part of this community. My name is Akshay Nanavati. I'm the founder here at existingtoliving.com and the creator of the Stress to Distress Cycle training video that you've just watched. Hope you got a lot of value out of it. And I look forward to seeing you again, and stay tuned for a lot more amazing content that will help you take your life to the next level and take your business to the next level. And remember, life is your playground. Go play it with joy and passion.